Hey everyone, thank you for coming to another episode on the Indie Fantasy Podcast. I am so happy to welcome Kristin L. Hamblin on as our guest today. So, Kristin
Thank
L.
you.
Hamblin writes young adult romantic fantasy full of magic, forbidden love on the clean side, and strong female characters. When not writing, she loves to travel to new places, become immersed in a good fantasy book, and spend time with friends and family. She lives in Oklahoma with her husband, four daughters, and a menagerie of pets, including two wiener dogs, Ruby and Sunny. So,
That's right.
welcome.
Thank you, Julie, for having me.
No problem. I'm so happy you're here. Now, reading this bio, I got a little bit curious. So, you say you have a menagerie of pets.
Yes,
So, I'm very curious. Besides the wiener dogs, what other animals do you have?
we always have pets because the kids love animals. So, and I think it's really good for kids to have pets growing up. So, we have a cat, a parakeet, a hamster, a rabbit, and currently two chickens in our backyard. And we live in the middle of a neighborhood with a small yard and everything. So, that's a story.
That's really fun. And I'm sure the chickens, I'm sure, are great because then you get the eggs and
We
that's
do
just
actually. It's funny because we didn't grow up on a farm or anything. We'd never had chickens before. And my somehow my kids talked my husband into buying those baby chicks that you see at like the farm supply store around Easter time. And now they're full grown chickens and they squawk all the time and poop everywhere. And we get two eggs a day. It's not enough to cover like the cost of taking care of them, but it's really fun for the kids to experience that.
Yeah, that's such a cool experience. That's like something me and my husband love to do someday is to just have some chickens and some land, maybe some goats. I don't know. I'm kind of iffy about the goat idea, but chickens sound amazing.
Yeah, it's been a lot of fun. They're really
Yeah,
cute. They've become like little lap chickens.
I
Like the
love
kids
that.
go out there and hold them and stuff. It's really, really cool.
That's so fun. That's so cool. All right. Well, I just gotta say, I first read your books, the Fated Born series, last year, fell in love with it. I think it's so unique and interesting. And so this is just an amazing opportunity I have to talk to you about it because I have just lots of questions about
I
just your
love answering questions.
inspiration. Yeah. All right. Well, before we dive into talking about your series, I want to get to know you a little bit. So
Oh
tell
yeah.
us a bit about where or when writing started for you and what that journey has been like.
Yeah. It's actually been like a journey of up and downs. So I started writing, as a little kid and really kind of grew a passion for it in high school. So in high school, I took a creative writing course and it was my senior year. And so it's at that time when you're kind of an impressionable, like, what am I going to do for the rest of my life kind of a thing. So I asked my creative writing teacher about a career as an author because I thought that would be a really cool thing to pursue, one of those like goals people just think about but never actually happen.
Mm-hmm.
And she told me not to waste my time.
Oh
uh,
dear.
yeah, yeah. It wasn't like because of my lack of talent or anything like that. It was a blanket statement to the whole class. Like you just can't make a living making, becoming an author. So I took that to heart. I as an impressionable teen, I thought, oh well, if I can't make money at it, I shouldn't study it. I shouldn't become one. So I set it aside, and for over 10 years, didn't write anything else for a long time. But of course, where your passion lies, you go back to it eventually, and I did, thankfully. And so, yeah, haven't looked back.
That's awesome. I'm so glad that you're able to like realize, this is something that I really want to do. So I'm not going to have someone else's opinion on it hold me back
Yeah,
from fulfilling my dream. I love that. But I totally
yeah,
get where that teacher's coming from. Like, I mean, it is really
right.
hard to make a living, but
It
at the same
is.
time, you shouldn't let it hold you back from doing something you really love.
Well, what she could have said was, don't stop, but do something that you can, a day job that you can make money at. Of course, I could have thought about
Hmm.
my idea myself, but I was just like, what do I do for the rest of my life? And I need to focus on that. And that was so I put that
Yeah.
aside.
Definitely. And then now we're at a time where indie publishing has just really flourished and there's just so many
Right.
opportunities now through online to make money or, alongside selling books. So anyway,
Right.
yeah, That's great. So what made you decide to go the indie route?
I really did try actually for a long time to get in traditional publishing because in my head at the time, that was making it, you know, that going the trad route was the way to go. Plus, I knew that the indie route was going to be a lot of work. Like, there's just so many things when you think about how to publish a book that you don't know until you start learning about it. And so for years, I wrote books and queried them, and I never got any interest in the ideas that I was putting out there. And so one day I decided if I was ever going to have my books read by readers, then I needed to start doing it myself. And so February of 2022, I said, I'm going to go indie. And 7 months later, Fated Born was published. That's how long it took me to learn the whole process and start everything from start to finish and get it out there.
Yeah, there's a lot to learn about it. But yeah, that's
Yeah,
amazing. It seems like when I hear from other authors about their journeys of trying out traditional before going indie, is that it's a common trend of like traditional or agents just aren't interested in a lot of these stories. And I get
right.
it, it's a marketing thing. You're trying to find the next book that will
Exactly.
sell. But
Right.
then the author goes indie and all of a sudden it's like there are readers out there who want that story.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just an interesting thing to observe.
I mean, if I was ever to become an agent or if I had their job, I understand that you got to pick what's the top selling idea. You know what I mean?
Right.
What's the upcoming the top selling idea. And um, Fated Born may, if I had held on long enough, have become that one day. But honestly, it's fantasy romance. It's really hot right now, and so
Hmm.
glad that I went indie when I did.
Right, right. It seems to be selling really well in the indie space. Yeah,
Exactly.
yeah. All right, well, let's talk about Fated Born a little bit then. With it being fantasy romance, and I just think it's so unique and interesting. I first got to say, your covers are so gorgeous.
Love my covers. You like them? The
When I
little
first
display back
saw,
here.
yeah, I love them. I love them on display back there. When I first saw the cover for Fated Born, my jaw literally dropped at
I think I
how
had tears in my
beautiful
eyes.
it is.
I mean, I know
Yeah.
I did.
I
I was
love
like,
that.
showed my husband because I got it, in an email. I was like, look at this, look at this is my cover. This is crazy. Especially the first book you ever write, the cover for the first book is just it's a good feeling.
Yes, totally, totally. Yeah, they're like the most beautiful covers I have ever seen. And like the cover and then the premise just immediately intrigued me. So anyway, give us the brief pitch about what Fate Born is about. You can do the first book or the whole series, whichever one you'd like to do.
Yeah, so Fated Born starts off in what I call and what lots of people call the pre-mortal world. So it's the world that exists before you're born to Earth. But in this book, there are no human emotions there. So it's kind of like a perfect utopian world where there's no love or there's no hate, nothing wrong, you can't feel pain, kind of thing. And you just kind of learn what it means to be a human before you choose when you're going to be born to Earth. And the main character, Artemis, something happens to him and his human emotions awaken. So he's the only one there that can actually feel things like love and hate. And then he ends up falling in love with his friend Leda. And also, because he can now experience human emotions, he also recognizes there's some corruption there where there shouldn't be. And so it's him and his journey with this forbidden love and trying to basically save his world.
Love it, love it. Yeah, that just really intrigued me. The idea of it takes place in this pre-existence. And
Mm-hmm.
then not only that, but everyone cannot feel emotion, or they shouldn't feel emotion.
Right, exactly.
And then you have that forbidden love aspect with it, which that intrigued me as well. So I am just so curious, what inspired you to think of the idea of a setting like that, where no one should feel emotion? It's a pre-existence. And then in the story, the main character is looking at the mortal existence, which is this very classic fantasy setting. So how did those two ideas merge?
So the idea for Fated Born actually came from my daughter when she was younger. She just asked me one day randomly, um, what if we could choose when we're born? And that was her question. It was just a little innocent kid question, And I was like, huh, what if we could choose when we're born? And that spawned these three books just from that simple question. But obviously, if we can choose when we're born, we're starting off before we're born in that story. And really, if you're writing a book about a world where everything's perfect, there has to be some conflict somewhere, and an artist has to learn about these human emotions from somewhere. So then he began watching mortals. He's a watcher in this book, and his job is to watch and study mortals on Earth, and that's how he learns about love. He's not supposed to watch love, but he ends up watching love, and that's how he learns about it, and that's how his human emotions awaken. And that's all in chapter 1, so I'm not really spoiling anything. But and so on Earth there's another storyline under this book, and they two entangle as the series goes on. The characters that he's watching are actually very important to what happens to Leda and Artemis as they also become born to Earth later on. And so it's the two intersecting storylines get to merge, but it creates a lot of passion and drama into the story.
Oh yeah, it totally does. I can definitely feel the drama as I was reading the book. I was just the tension is there. So you mentioned that this pre-existence with uh the or the lack or not supposed to feeling emotion and making it seem like it's this perfect society, and you said it was like a utopian society. I was wondering, did you gain any inspiration from like dystopian novels on creating that? Because I remember like I think you had pitched something, or maybe it wasn't really like a pitch, but like one of your posts on Instagram, you were saying it was like a Throne of Glass meets The Giver, which The Giver, it
Yeah.
definitely I can totally see that. So anyway,
All
did
right.
you gain inspiration from The Giver or other stories kind of like that?
It was kind of like the idea just came to me, and then later I had to figure out how to tell readers what it was about or kind of compare it to. So, like the giver, when his emotions slowly come over time. Artist has come kind of all at once, but he then you get to watch him deal with all these newfound things that he's never had to deal with his whole life. Because imagine like waking up one day as a teenager and you just have all these emotions coming at you, and you have to deal with what is anger, what is passion, and never having experienced those over time. Um, and then, of course, I don't know if you've seen or the movie Pleasantville or heard of it.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of like they start off in this like black and white 50s TV type show where they don't even know what's going on outside of it, and then they wake up one day to like this how it is in the real world. It's kind of like that maybe too, but
That's really cool. That's really cool. So unique, so original. And you may have already answered this in, a previous question, but this is a fantasy romance. So what made you want to make this fantasy romance?
I love to read books that have romance in them. That's just, I won't even pick a book up if I don't know ahead of time that it has romance in it.
Yeah,
It
yeah.
doesn't have to be the main thing. There just has to be something in there.
Hmm.
And so I was like, I'm never going to write a book that doesn't also have romance in there. Now, it turned out as the characters, because I mostly like pants my stories. I just write them without pre deciding where this story is going to go, which don't even ask me how it ends up being okay in the end, because it seems like you should have some kind of idea of where it's going before you start. But
Hmm.
um, I it ended up being more romance heavy than I thought it was going to be. But honestly, I love that about this book. The story, the series mainly becomes these two characters and how they find each other again after being separated. But in the interim, they're also like saving their worlds and saving their kingdoms, and then learning to love each other again when they meet later on anyway. So yeah.
I love it. I highly encourage any readers, if you're going to be picking up a first book, continue with the series because it's so intriguing following these characters. And yeah, like you said, finding them and finding that love for each other again. It's just so good.
I
Um,
will say before you go on, I will
okay.
say that the first book, because it's such a unique concept, like I haven't really seen a lot of other books like it as far as where it starts in this world with no emotions. Um, it's hard to predict that the next two books become more traditional epic fantasy romance because as they leave that premortal world and they enter like a typical like medieval Europe type setting. Um, anyway, so it does. Everyone that starts book one never regrets going on to the other two.
Right, right. Which is why I'm glad that it's mentioned or you mention it in a post that it's Throne of Glass meets the Giver. It's like it's not only
Right.
like the Giver vibes. You have the Throne of Glass vibes of this
Exactly.
epic fantasy world. And yeah, and then definitely I would say in the well, you could see it like in the first book with the, observing this couple that's in the world. Um, but yeah, definitely
Right,
in the
that's
second
true.
book
Yeah.
when you definitely get more of that epic fantasy feel to it.
In book two, one of them is on Earth, and then in book three, they're both on Earth. So
Yeah. I love that. I love it. Okay, so the third book came out just last September,
mhm.
and are there any other ideas that you have for this world, or is it like complete?
It's complete. So each book is its own story with an overarching issue that has to be solved by the end of the third book. It is a completed series, but I've had readers pitch like, "Oh, I'm going to see this character's backstory." So maybe some novellas could happen in the future.
Hmm.
Um, I also wrote a bonus chapter that's from book one. It's the pretty much the climactic scene in book one, but it's from the other character's point of view.
Mm,
So book one's Artemis's point of view completely throughout the whole book. Book two and book three, it's a dual POV, so both of them get to have their voice in those two books. But the bonus chapter is told from Lada's point of view, and it's that heightened scene at the very end. I won't say what's going to happen, but anyway, so that's if readers want to get that, they can find that on my website, and it's just a little extra thing. But other than that, it's just the three books right now.
perfect, perfect. I love it. And you have a new book that's going to be coming out in just really soon, probably. Was it March? Is March what
March,
you're
yeah, I
like?
know. Susan.
That's so soon. I love it. So tell us a little bit about that book.
Yeah, so the title of the book is Sorcery and Stagecraft. And with this book, I wanted to, so Fated Board is kind of an upper young adult. There's a lot of, it's young adult, but it's a lot of upper, older young adult concepts. And this one's more true young adult, I would call it. It's about a girl who discovers on her 16th birthday that she can open portals to other worlds. And what she doesn't know is that when she opens a portal for the first time, it sets off a prophecy that is basically foretells the doom of all worlds. And so it's fantasy romance, but I would call it zero spice fantasy romance. So it's got passion, kissing, and minor like cursing and stuff, but it's doesn't have any spice in it.
Love it. Yeah, I was reading the synopsis just the other day and I was just so intrigued by what it was. You had like three characters. It's like this unlikely group together that they have to work together.
Yes,
And I love tropes like that where you have like misfits or like just an unlikely group of characters needing to work together to accomplish something. And
yes, they're all very misfit.
yeah, I love it. I can't wait for it. So that comes out
March 14th.
March 14th. Perfect. All
Yeah.
right, so we can look forward to that. And the cover looks absolutely beautiful.
Thank you. I love this cover, just like I love Faded More. It's just so different.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. It's so different from the Fated Born books. But yeah, it's still beautiful.
Which I'm glad it is because it's not the same kind of book,
Hmm.
in my opinion. So
Yeah. So I'm really excited to check that one out. All right. So when you were writing the Fated Born series and then this new book, what have you discovered has been your favorite parts about writing and your least favorite parts?
About the actual writing process.
The writing process, the publishing process, or anything. Your mindset.
Um, yeah, so my favorite part is, well, as I write, is knowing like, oh yeah, readers are gonna love this or readers are gonna hate me for this kind of a thing. I also love when I get messages or emails from readers just out of the blue. Hey, thanks a lot for what you did to me in this chapter, or, I can't believe this guy did this thing. Um, that just makes my day, like makes my week. So that would be my favorite parts. My least favorite part would probably be, I don't know, probably the marketing, because it takes a lot of time to promote the books and tell the world about them, and it takes time away from the writing, which is
Mm-hmm.
when I was thinking, oh, I'll go traditional. They'll just take care of that stuff for me. But then I found out the more I learned about it, they don't necessarily always take care of that stuff for you. So
Yeah. If only it was a perfect world where we could just focus on our writing and someone else can do all the marketing for us.
yeah.
Yeah.
And plus, I have 4 kids, so it's always a struggle to
Yeah.
find the time to get the words in.
Right. You definitely have to find a groove that works for you. And
Right.
yeah, yeah, definitely. And I loved your favorite part as well with just getting messages from readers. That's just
All right.
amazing and makes an author's day. So I love that.
Definitely.
Love that. So, looking back on everything that you've been through, what is one piece of advice you would tell your past self or just advice you would give to any aspiring authors?
Um, I actually have a piece of advice that I give frequently, and it stems from my experience with that teacher and my decision to put down writing for so long. And it's to never let anyone tell you your dreams aren't worth your time. And I think that kind of says it all. But if you have a passion, you have a dream, a goal, don't let someone talk you out of it. Maybe you can do it in addition to the things that you need to be doing, but don't give it up.
I love that. Love that. All right, let's go into some rapid fire questions.
All right.
All right, so what is your favorite trope?
My favorite trope is that one where like the character's got a secret past or something special about them that we don't know yet. I
Ooh,
don't know if
I
there's
like
like a
that.
blanket word for that. Not chosen
Yeah,
one.
yeah, I don't know exactly what that is, but I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So what's your favorite writing snack?
I actually don't snack while I write. I drink. So
Okay.
my favorite go-to drink is a dirty Dr. Pepper Zero. So it's Dr. Pepper Zero with coconut cream in it.
Ooh, I've heard
I
that's a
put the
good
lime in it
combination.
too, but I don't put the lime in. But yeah, it's like, I don't know, paradise.
Yeah, I've heard that's a great combination. What is your favorite book currently?
Throne of Glass. Definitely.
Love
That whole
it.
series.
Yeah, that whole series is great. What are you working on currently?
I'm currently writing the first draft for the book 2 of the Sorcery and Sacrifice series. So that's the Sorcery and Stagecraft, the book that's coming out in March. I'm drafting the second book. So I have 3 books currently planned, maybe 4, but definitely 3 so far.
Awesome, awesome. And where can readers find you?
The best place would be my website. It's KristinLHamblin.com. It has all my links to my socials, but I am active on social media. I post almost every day. But anyway, you can also find my newsletter on there, which is, I always give my newsletter subscribers first look at everything. So they've already seen the cover of the next book and they get all these little fun giveaways and stuff too.
Perfect. All right, and I'll have the links to all of your website and your socials and newsletter sign up in the show notes, or if you're on YouTube, in the description below. Thank you so much for coming on, Kristin. I had such a great time talking to you about Fated Born and your writing journey. It's been such a pleasure.
Thank you so much for having me. I loved answering all your questions. Good questions.
Awesome. Have a great day.
Thank you so much.